Howdy folks, welcome to module 19 of the CompTIA A+ course. This is of course based on the 1200 series of A+, and today's module is called Managing Security Settings. So this is once again going to be about security. Today's module consists of only two main sections, the first of which is Configure Workstation Security, and then the second main section we're going to be diving in today is Troubleshoot Workstation Security Issues. Alright folks, and if you haven't done it already, remember to give this video a like. I do put a lot of time and a lot of effort into creating these videos for free for you guys, so yeah, a like will go a long way. And of course, if you'd like to know when the rest of my content goes live, maybe consider subscribing, I don't know. In case you guys don't know, I do have free practice questions at the end of this playlist for both Core 1 and Core 2, so if you want theory-based questions, they're at the end of this playlist. These questions are not the actual questions of the exam, but they will test you on the same objectives and they will measure the same skills. Alright, I think that's enough mumbo jumbo for today. Let's get right to it. Configure Workstation Security. First thing up, password best practices. Now, a lot of this stuff I'm sure you guys already know. It's simply stuff that you just don't necessarily think about every day. Now, this, I assure you, is something that will test you on in the exam. So even though this might seem pretty simple, make sure you know it, make sure you understand it, because you will get tested on this in the exam, folks. So first of all, complexity requirements. What is that? Most platforms, most websites, programs, and whatever these days will have some sort of complexity requirements. It means your password or the user's password has to be a certain length. Generally at least 8 characters. The more characters it is, the longer it takes to crack it if somebody were to try and crack it. Other things we talk about when we say complexity requirements is the variation of characters. Instead of just using actual words, you need to mix your characters, folks. It needs to be uppercase, lowercase, numbers and symbols. The more you mix, the better. The longer your password is, the better. If you're going to be using a very long word, but let's say it is still an actual word, somebody like me can go and use a special kind of password attack against you, which we call a dictionary attack. That means I'm going to be running a program that's effectively going to be trying all the words in the dictionary, and I can guarantee you in a matter of mere minutes, if not less, I'm going to have your password. So that is why it's so important that you've got a password that is as long as possible, but also as complex as possible. Something else to keep in mind, folks, with regards to password best practices is expiration requirements. You'll find that most websites and platforms these days, they will not allow you to use a password for more than a certain period of time. So normally after about 4 to 8 weeks in the average company, your password for whatever will generally expire. You'll start receiving reminders normally about 2 weeks prior, with most things. It's going to tell you, your password's about to expire in 2 weeks, or something along those lines. Then, of course, the person who this password belongs to, they've got approximately 2 weeks or whatever period they've given you to change this password. Failing which, the password is going to expire and they will no longer be able to log in. They will first have to go and reset the password and choose a new one before they can go and, log back in. You'll find under this umbrella of expiration requirements, some companies, most companies, will not allow you to use a password that's been used previously before. So if you're going to try and use a password that you've used maybe 3 or 4 passwords ago, it's not going to work. That is, of course, a security requirement because who knows? Maybe somebody saw that previous password of yours. The whole reason why we keep changing passwords is not just in case somebody's cracking your password. It's also in the event of somebody maybe that saw your password. Maybe you just don't know about it, but somebody somewhere along the line, once upon a time, saw your password. And at least now, if we're going to make your password expire, it's not going to really help them much now, is it? Alright, and then the last thing I want to mention here on the best practices with regards to passwords, folks, is BIOS passwords. Also commonly known as supervisor passwords. Some folks will call this a UFI password. That is basically a password that you have to go and enter if you would like to go into the BIOS of a machine, and if you'd like to go and change something in there. This could be maybe the boot order of the machine. This could be something else, maybe overclocking settings. You name it, whatever. But for the most part, it's probably going to be because somebody wants to go and change the boot order of this machine, because maybe they want to go and format this machine. Now, a BIOS password, folks, does not keep people off your computer. It's not to be confused with a normal Windows password. I suppose this could be known as a login password. It's also not to be confused with a BitLocker password. Both of those other ones will in fact keep someone off your machine. A BIOS password, or, well, supervisor password, does not keep people off your machine. They can still log into your machine, assuming they know the password, and they can still carry on like normal. A BIOS password simply keeps people out of your BIOS. Now, on a side note here, it's not really part of this topic per se. I think I did mention this in quarter one, but in case you guys did not pay attention, or in case you guys don't remember this from quarter one, if you ever need to reset your BIOS password, whether it's your password you forgot, or whether a user forgot their BIOS password, this is actually a very simple procedure, guys. In most cases, it literally just involves you removing the CMOS battery from the motherboard. This is obviously much easier on a desktop PC because you literally just have to remove the side panel and then voila, you can expose the motherboard. You just remove the coin cell battery on the motherboard and you have to keep it out for about approximately 5 minutes. After which, if you put it back in, you're going to find that the PC is going to forget everything in the BIOS. It's going to forget the BIOS password, the boot order, everything. But at least you would have removed the BIOS password. In some computers, you might have to use a little jumper on the motherboard, but in most motherboards, you just need to remove the coin cell battery for approximately 5 minutes, and it's going to forget the password. Alright, let's move you guys on to the next security topic here. End user best practices. Now, right off the bat, that title does not exactly seem like it's security related, but it is. Trust me, it is. Let's start you guys off with log off when not in use. You'll be surprised to know how many people don't actually do this. Now, folks, when I say log off when not in use, I mean when you're not using your computer. When somebody is not in front of the computer, they should not leave the machine unlocked. That is asking for trouble. And it's not to say it'll be some hacker from outside. Very often we have what we call lunchtime attacks. So logging off will mitigate against lunchtime attacks. This is actually surprisingly very often a coworker at your office, somebody that you don't get along with, somebody that doesn't like you, or somebody that just wants to frame somebody. Who knows? They're going to use your machine to access something they're not supposed to. They're going to see stuff they're not supposed to, or they're going to go and do something not so nice, and they're going to basically frame you because they were using your machine to do that something which is not so nice. So by locking your machine, you're keeping people off your machine. Now, obviously, it can still be hacked and cracked and whatever, but at least now you're making it harder for them. You're not handing it to them on a silver platter. It's very quick and very easy to lock your machine, folks. You literally just press the Windows key and the L key on your keyboard at the same time. If you don't know which one is the Windows key, that's the one of the little flag icon, most commonly located between your Control and your Alt key. It's got the Windows logo on it, the little flaggy. And if you hold that key down with the L key, it's going to lock your machine. It's going to look like your PC has just, well, restarted or something. Meanwhile, it's just asking you for a password. As soon as you provide the password to this machine, it's going to carry on exactly where you left off. No programs, no nothing will be closed. Something else you guys can maybe potentially go and use, although I don't really see people using this, is using a screensaver lock. I almost never seen screensavers these days. And then, of course, folks, you can just, well, manually go and lock the workstation before leaving. That's something I just explained to you guys. You literally just press the Windows key and L. That would be an example of manually locking a machine. Alternatively, just make a timeout. So if your machine is inactive for 5 or 10 minutes or whatever, go and set your machine to lock itself after 5 minutes or 10 minutes of inactivity. That's a very good way to go about this. And then, folks, what about the actual hardware that we use? The desktops, the laptops that you and the users use. So on that note, let's talk about securing or protecting critical hardware. So whether you're using a desktop PC or a laptop PC, often in some company environments, we need to secure these to prevent people from stealing the machine. Now, desktop PCs, it's not that common to see people stealing them because obviously they're quite bulky, they're quite big, so it's kind of hard to hide them when you're stealing them. But a laptop is a whole different ball game, of course. People can very easily just shove them under the shirt, walk out of the establishment, and nobody's the wiser. They can put it in their backpack, and nobody's going to be the wiser. So one of the things we use, folks, to help mitigate against this is equipment locks. Something that has been discussed in this course before. So about 1 or 2 modules ago, we spoke about different kinds of equipment locks. Most commonly, this will come forth in some sort of chain. It's some sort of steel cable. Now, with desktop PCs, you can actually go and use those. It clips onto your desktop PC, and you can go and, well, chain this PC to a table or something. Laptops, very much the same story. It's way more common of laptops. Laptops often have a special slot on them. You stick this little cable into that slot, and the other end of the cable you can go and tie to a table or something along those lines. Now, these cables can either work with a key, an actual key you've got to go and use to unlock it, or it can be some sort of combination lock. I've seen both of these kinds of lock equally in the industry. And then the last topic I want to say here under end user best practices, guys, is secure personally identifiable information, which we call PII for short. So any form of personally identifiable information and passwords, make sure it's secure. Now you're probably wondering, okay, what do I mean by that? Well, guys, this can include something as simple as cleaning your desk, a clean desk policy. Why? Because you get people that do what we call dumpster diving and things like that. So I will come around your desk, especially when you're not there. I'm going to come and snoop, and I'm going to see if there's any papers lying around, any sticky notes, anything like that. And I'm going to check if you have not maybe perhaps written down something on a piece of paper or a sticky note. Something like a bank account number, credit card number, password, pins, secret phrases, anything of value that I can go and use to, well, maybe compromise you, that I can use in a phishing attack against you. This could be a spear phishing attack. So I'm basically going to be snooping around your desk and in your trash bin and all kinds of places like that for anything of value, anything sensitive. And then the very last one under this point, guys, do not store unencrypted documents or make unauthorized copies. So if something is very sensitive in nature and you know this needs to be secure and you know this needs to be securely stored, go and encrypt it, especially if your company policy says you need to go and do that. So this falls under the PII that we just spoke of. So if your company's got some sort of policy in place regarding personally identifiable information, then you probably need to go and have a look at that and maybe just go check. Maybe it says you need to go and encrypt any documents that's personally identifiable. And of course, if you want to go make a copy, make sure you're authorized to go make a copy of that document, especially if it contains personal information, folks. Alright, I'm going to move you guys along to account policies. There's a bit of a picture for you guys. Now, in case you guys don't know, that screenshot has been taken on the Active Directory. So Active Directory is a server. It's a role we install on server on premises, at least if we talk about the on-premises version of Active Directory. And once you go into your Active Directory, you will have the ability to go and right-click on any account. In this case, we clicked on somebody called David Martin. You will have the ability to go and click on any account, and you'll be able to reset the password to that person. You'll be able to view any kind of detail about that person. What exactly you can see and what exactly you can do depends on whether you're an admin, and it also depends on what kind of privilege you have as an admin. Now, what I want to talk to you guys specifically about here is account policies. Now, under the account policies section of a user, you have the ability to go and configure policies, of course. Many kinds of policies. One of them is to go and restrict login times. So if you don't know what that means, it means a user will only be able to log into your company, your environment, during certain times of the day. So if you know for a fact your working hours or your client's working hours is from, let's say, 7 o'clock in the morning until about 4 o'clock in the afternoon, you can go make the login times from 7 until 4 in the afternoon. If anybody tries to log in before 7, it's not going to work. If they try and log in after 4 o'clock in the afternoon, it's not going to work. And you can actually go and set it up even further to the point where this can go and send alerts to the administrators if somebody tries to log in outside those hours. Another kind of policy you guys can go and configure, and I'm actually shocked that this is not configured by default, is failed attempts lockout. This is something we see every day. Everywhere, every day, in fact. So if you, for example, get the PIN or the pattern or something wrong on your phone 3 times, what happens? The phone locks itself or it times itself out. If you go to a point of sale system or if you go to an ATM and you use your bank card and you get the PIN wrong 3 times, what happens? it soft blocks the card or entirely blocks the card. It might even swallow the card if it's an ATM. So generally, all over in life, if you get your password or your PIN wrong 3 times in a row, there's going to be consequences. Now, in an Active Directory environment, that means your company's got a domain. If a user gets a password wrong 3 times or even more, absolutely nothing happens by default, at least not on an on-premises Active Directory environment. Now, I'm shocked by that because almost all companies have got a domain, they've got an Active Directory environment, and yet these settings are not implemented in a lot of companies. So what I would definitely encourage you guys to go and do, because this is completely for free, and since most companies already have Active Directory, it's literally just a case of you need to go and turn this on and go and configure it. So you need to go and establish some sort of lockout policy, so that if your users get their password wrong a certain amount of times, it locks the account, or at the very least times out the account. Normally we just make the account timeout because people sometimes honestly do get their passwords wrong, especially if they've been on leave for a while. So you can go make the account timeout, and if they get it wrong again, it just keeps timing out, and this could potentially even subsequently get longer and longer the timeout period. And then folks, something else we can go and configure under policies is concurrent logins. So in other words, how many people at a given time can be logged into one specific account, or how many people at a given time can log into a certain platform at a certain time. So maybe only 3 people can log into one account at a given time, or maybe only 3 people can log into a certain server at a certain time. So this is obviously up to you and your company or your client's requirements, you know, how many concurrent sessions you want to allow and for what this actually is. And then the last one I'm going to mention here just under policies is using a timeout or a screen lock, something I did somewhat mention earlier on the end user best practices. So if a user in your company is inactive for a certain amount of time on the domain machine, make that machine lock itself automatically. So earlier we spoke about it from a user perspective, so that's to go and do it on an individual machine. That is when the user goes and does it themselves. Now we're coming at this more from an administrator perspective, more from a server perspective, more from a bulk perspective where we can go and do this for a lot of users or a lot of accounts or a lot of machines at the same time. Something else that I want to mention here, guys, is re-enabling accounts. Now, normally in most company environments, if somebody is no longer working for this company, we disable that account as quickly as we possibly can. And then after that, as quickly as we possibly can, we will eventually go and delete that account. Otherwise, as long as that account stays on your system, it's referred to as a Smurf account. And this can be used for all kinds of not so nice things. That's one of the main targets that we target as hackers. So if I am a threat actor and I'm going to be trying to break into your company, I'm going to be targeting administrator accounts because obviously they've got privilege. I'm also going to be targeting Smurf accounts, which means they're dormant accounts that are just not in use. It's a terminology we use for accounts that are not in use. Now, why do we target Smurf accounts, you ask? Well, because they're not in use. If an account is not in use, it generally draws a lot less attention to ourselves, and that's obviously what we want as hackers. By the time that you realize I am in your company or in your environment, it needs to be too late, or you shouldn't know that I was there to begin with. So generally, you know, when it comes to re-enabling accounts in a company, you know, you'll find that companies are very strict on that. So assuming not too much time has gone by, somebody might be able to go and re-enable an account, assuming this person was maybe just on leave. So if the person's on leave for 2 weeks, then maybe we can think about just disabling an account. And then when the person gets back, we re-enable it. But if somebody leaves the company, we disable it, and then very quickly after that, we delete the account. It's a security risk as long as it's hanging around. Last thing here, folks, under account policies, resetting passwords. Be very careful who you allow in your company to reset passwords. Now, this is unfortunately an extremely tedious task. It's probably one of the easiest tasks you'll do as an administrator, but it's also a very tedious task. In most companies, especially medium to large size companies, there's always going to be users almost every day that needs you or somebody to go and reset their password. Oh, I forgot my password. And it's generally because these people are, well, idiots. It could be for other reasons as well, but the main one is because, well, they're idiots, unfortunately. There's nothing we can do about it. So what you can go and do is, as you work your way up the IT ladder and as you become more senior, this is the kind of task we are going to go and delegate to junior technicians. So when you are starting out in IT, this is probably one of the very first things you're going to do. So for those of you that are doing my A+ course, because maybe you are planning on job hunting after the course, especially after you've obtained your A+ certification, well guys, one of the very first things you're going to be required to do once you get your A+ certification is probably going to be to go and reset people's passwords. That's one of the very, very first things you do as a rookie. And there's nothing wrong with that. We all start at rock bottom, including myself. I started at complete rock bottom and I worked my way up. And the same will happen to you guys. Yes, people get lucky. Sometimes somebody knows somebody and then you get in someplace high and you earn a big salary and all that. But in most cases, 9 out of 10 times, you're going to have to work your way up the ladder. Just like I did. So I didn't wake up one morning and then I knew everything that I know now. It didn't work like that. It took a lot of time, a lot of practice, a lot of effort, and a lot of work for me to get where I am. And the same is going to happen for you guys. But yeah, good things happen over time, guys. Just hang in there. Keep doing your studies. Keep writing those exams. Keep getting those certifications. Keep applying for jobs. And eventually you'll get there. Anyway, folks, let's move you guys on to the next topic. Execution control. What the heck is that, you probably ask? Well, guys, that is things like auto-run and auto-play. Now, if you don't know what that is, there's a bit of a screenshot for you guys. Hopefully that'll give you more or less an idea what this could possibly be. If it still doesn't make any sense to you guys, well, have you ever seen when you plug a flash drive, a memory stick in other words, or an external drive into your computer, that a little window pops up automatically on your screen? And this little window that pops up normally gives you suggestions on what programs you can use to open the files that is on that device. So if you've got a bunch of music files on that device, MP3s perhaps, it will suggest various media players that you have installed, if you have more than one installed of course, that you can go and use to open those files. If it's, for example, video files, it'll suggest also various kinds of media players. If it's images, it'll suggest various kinds of programs you can use to open those images. You get what I'm saying? So the whole idea is it's supposed to make your life a little bit more convenient by giving you suggestions on what you can use to open the various file types that's on that device. All sounds great on paper, doesn't it? The problem here is, folks, for autoplay to be able to suggest programs to you to open these various file types, it needs to launch that device to a certain extent. And in doing so, it's triggering malware. That is one of the most common ways that malware spreads, besides emails and downloads and stuff. So as soon as this autoplay launches that device to a certain extent, it's going to trigger any and all malware. Well, most of the time it's going to trigger any and all malware that might be on that device. That's a problem. So any good IT guy worth his salt, you'll find that on their machine, autoplay is almost always disabled. Maybe not on other people's machines, but on any IT person's machine, it's almost always disabled, including my own. The downside here is I'm not going to have it pop up automatically anymore. It's unfortunately not going to suggest programs to me anymore. The benefit here is I'm not going to have malware triggered automatically. It gives my antivirus and my various security softwares a fighting chance. It gives them a chance to scan this device first, or at the very least, it gives me an opportunity as a human being to go and right-click on the device in question and say scan with, and then I just choose my antivirus. So at the end of the day, it is not something you want to have on, although it's very convenient to have it on. It's not something you want to have on because it's got more downsides to it than benefits. So you need to go and configure the default action for this thing not to go and pop up. Make sure it's turned off, folks. Now, since we are talking about security here and antivirus and all that, that brings me to the next topic. Windows Defender Antivirus. Now, Windows Defender on its own, folks, has always been on Windows. Well, maybe not always, but it's been there for a while. If you go check on Windows 8, Windows 8.1, all those versions of Windows, it was there. You would find Windows Defender there, but from Windows 10 onwards, it's a full-blown antivirus and security suite. It's got Firewall built into it. It's got an antivirus built into it. It's got the whole shebang. Now, here's a bit of a screenshot for you guys of my Defender on my machine, at least the one I'm using to record this video today. So you can see my theme on my Windows is a bit black, so that's why this image is so dark. The next image I'm going to show you guys for the next topic, which is also somewhat related to Defender, is not on my machine. That's a different machine, which is why the next one's going to be white. So on my machine, which has got a black theme, you can see I took this screenshot. It's in my antivirus. You can see it has run a scan recently there. No threats were detected. My antivirus is on. It's up to date. everything is hunky-dory the way it's supposed to be. That's what we want to see. We do not want to see it detecting threats. We do not want to see that our antivirus is turned off or that it's outdated. So if you guys want to know what your settings are, you could literally just go to your search engine on your Windows, your Cortana, the bottom left. Go in there, type in Windows Defender. You're going to see there's going to be various defenders that's going to pop up. And the one you're going to be looking for is virus and threat protection. So you're going to go in there and you're going to end up on this menu that I am on right now. You're going to see these settings. You'll have the ability to go and run scans manually if you feel it's required. You'll be able to go and see what threats have been detected in the past. You can see there's a little hyperlink there in the middle of the screenshot that says protection history. So if you feel your machine has recently blocked something and it was a false positive, you can go and unblock it there. You can go and manage your settings. So where mine says manage settings for threat protection, I can go in there and I can perhaps make an exception. If I know for a fact my antivirus is going to detect something as a threat, and I know it's not a threat, I know it's something that's not harmful, I can go make an exception for that specific file, or I can go make an exception for that location where that specific file is. And you can go and manually scan for updates here, of course, as well. So there's lots of things you can go and do here. Definitely encourage you guys to at least go and have a little peeky peek in here to see what settings are available. Now, since we are on this topic of Windows Defender, you also get something called Defender Firewall. So the firewall on Windows used to be just called the Windows Firewall. It used to have a certain logo. And at some point in time with Windows 10, Microsoft did one of those big fat updates they like to go and do. They call them feature updates. These feature updates, guys, are not your ordinary updates. They are huge in size. And they change your Windows so much that it's basically a whole new operating system. They will go and add stuff, remove stuff, change stuff. It's basically a new operating system. Now, one of those big fat changes that they like to go and do roughly every 6 months or so, in one of them, they changed the name from Windows Firewall to Windows Defender Firewall. So if you have a Windows 10 build that's old enough, you'll find that the firewall is just called Windows Firewall. But if you have a Windows 10 build that's new, you'll find it's called Windows Defender Firewall. Now, in Windows 11, it's obviously just called Windows Defender Firewall because Windows 11 came out afterwards. Either way, the firewall's purpose remains the same. All firewalls, their purpose is to control the flow of traffic. At least that's one of the main things they do. They will block and allow ports, block and allow IP addresses and URLs. You've got a whitelist, you've got a blacklist, that kind of stuff. Now, you can go and get yourself a third-party firewall if you want to. That's not a topic here right now. And these third-party firewalls will probably be better than the Windows one, if I'm being perfectly honest. Normally they are. And it will probably come with additional features and functions. Or, if you're a medium to a large size company, you're probably going to end up getting yourself a physical firewall. You get many, many brands out there. And each of these brands has got many, many models. But what they all have in common is they have way more functions and features than your traditional firewall. They will have things like bandwidth management, which is part of quality of service. They will have intrusion detection, they will have intrusion prevention, and much, much, much more, guys. So in a nutshell, what can we say about Windows Defender? It's used to block or allow stuff. What kind of stuff? Well, this could be things like ports. It could be things like programs. Now, in essence, firewalls can also go and block IP addresses and URLs and stuff, but the Windows firewall is not very good at that. The Windows firewall is normally used more for blocking ports and programs and things like that. If you want to go beyond that, you might have to go and get yourself a third-party firewall. Right, and then I'm going to move you guys on to something that's not Windows Defender, but still in the security wheelhouse. Encrypting file system. This is known as EFS for short, guys. It's got to do with encryption, and, well, in case you guys are wondering, you get many, many kinds of encryption with Windows. The two main ones we discuss at A+ level is EFS and BitLocker. You do get other ones as well, many, many other kinds, but they're not really covered at A+ level, and you do not need to know them for the A+ exam. So, yeah. For those of you that don't know, the EFS is a benefit or a feature that comes with the NTFS file system. You get many kinds of file systems, at least if we're coming at this from a Windows perspective. So Windows-wise, you get, for example, FAT32, NTFS, or EFS, and so on and so forth. So with the NTFS file system, which is what most of us normally use on our day-to-day machines, with that file system, EFS is one of the benefits we get with it. Is it something we use? Not really anymore, if I'm being honest. It's not a bad function. Just because people don't use something, guys, doesn't mean it's bad. It sometimes just is a matter of there's something newer and better out there, or the landscape has changed. In this case, it's a matter of the landscape has just kind of changed. So in the old days, if we go back 15, 20 years in time, maybe more, when people didn't all have their own machines, when we were sharing a computer, the EFS was, well, it was great because it would encrypt a specific file or a specific folder on a machine. And if you are sharing a machine of somebody, whether it be a family member or a co-worker, if you're sharing a machine and you don't want somebody to see certain things, something private, something confidential, you could go and encrypt that specific file or folder, and the other people will hopefully not be able to see that. It depends on which account encrypted it. So if you are sharing the same account, then it's not really going to work. But if you're sharing the same machine and everybody's got their own account, yes, then it would work. The account that encrypts the folder is the account that can open the folder. So if I'm logging to user account 1 and I encrypt the folder that belongs to me, only user account 1 can open that folder. If user account 2 logs on, they will see the folder. The font of the folder might even change green to indicate that the folder has been encrypted, but they will not be able to open that folder. User account 2, however, can also go and encrypt its own folders that only it will be able to open. And user account 1 will not be able to open that. So vice versa kind of situation here. But nowadays, as we know, everybody's got their own machine, their own device. I mean, heck, most of us have got more than one device. We really don't share machines anymore. So that kind of means EFS is now left in the dust. Nobody really uses it anymore. It's something they barely ask in the exam. Most of the time, they don't ask about this at all in the exam. BitLocker, on the other hand, yes, they still ask about that in the exam. Quite a few questions, in fact. EFS, I mean, you would think they would ask about in the exam, but they don't really ask about it. It's also not something you will use in the industry anymore. Some topics are important for the exam, some are important for the industry, some are important for both. This is a topic that's not important for the exam, and it's not really something you're going to use in the industry. So we can actually ignore this topic and you'll be perfectly fine in the exam, if I'm being honest. BitLocker, not so much. That encryption is something that is in the exam, and it is something you will use in the industry. Anyways, let's finish this topic, guys. Encryption file system is normally referred to as EFS. And this is data at rest encryption. So the data is not moving around. I mean, that would probably be something like VPN as an example. You get many, many kinds of encryption, like I said earlier. EFS is something you use on data that's not moving around. It's in one specific location on one specific device. It's not moving about. And, like I said earlier, it's used to encrypt specific files or specific folders on a machine. If you want to go and encrypt the whole freaking drive, that'll be something entirely different. Something like BitLocker, perhaps, which is actually the next topic here, guys. So since I'm mentioning BitLocker, let me switch over to that. Windows BitLocker and Windows BitLocker to go. Why am I saying two different names there? Because you get two different kinds of BitLocker. BitLocker on its own is something used for internal drives. An internal hard drive inside your desktop or inside your laptop. BitLocker to go is for something you can take and go. Probably not the exact description that Microsoft would give, but that's a very easy way for you guys to remember it. So if you don't remember what the difference is, if you see to go, think of something you can take and go, like a flash drive, a memory stick in other words, or an external drive. You can literally just take it and you can go, you can skedaddle. A PC on the other hand, it might be plugged in, especially if it's a desktop PC, you can't exactly just go and take it and go. But if it's a flash drive, an external drive, anything like that, that is something you would go and use BitLocker to go on. And before I go into the actual nitty-gritty stuff here of BitLocker, guys, it's only available on Windows. If you go look at the other operating systems, they also have encryption, but it's called something else. It's not called BitLocker. BitLocker is a Windows encryption. And on the Windows side of the coin, it's only available on the Enterprise and Professional edition of Windows 10 and Windows 11. If you go to any lower edition, you're not going to find it. So it's only on Enterprise, only on Professional, only on Windows. So make sure you remember that. So what does it do? It encrypts all the data on a drive. It encrypts the whole freaking volume. All of it. Very secure, very handy if you're working off something sensitive. Also very handy if you've got employees that are working remotely. So if you've got folks that are working remotely with a company laptop or something like that, you might want to force them to use BitLocker. Because what happens if that laptop gets stolen or misplaced? Now, the device itself we're not too concerned about because it's normally insured. You can always go and claim it back from insurance. But the data on that device, that is the true concern here. What if it lands in the wrong hands? So to help avoid against that, we go and use BitLocker encryption or something like it. So if they get their hands on this laptop, the data on it is useless because it's encrypted. So at least we can sleep at night knowing the data is not going to land in the wrong hands. Also very useful for just, removable devices like a flash drive or an external drive. So if a company has external drives floating about, that's being used for work purposes, you'll find that usually these devices are encrypted. So if somebody happens to steal one of these devices or they get their hands somehow on one of them, the device is encrypted. They cannot access the data on it. So BitLocker, guys, is used for fixed disks. BitLocker to go is used for removable disks, flash drives, external drives, things like that. But that's something you guys already know. I said that in the beginning. There's a couple of requirements you guys need to know about with BitLocker as well. Now, these requirements that I'm about to list, there's 3 of them that I'm about to list. These are not set in stone anymore. Many moons ago when BitLocker just came out, there was 3 requirements that one had to meet first before you could use this wonderful benefit called BitLocker. Now, unfortunately, these 3 requirements that I'm about to list, they costed you an arm and a leg. Most people could not afford to go and run BitLocker. Only companies could, and they had to get these 3 requirements for each and every employee that was going to use BitLocker. And you would find that most companies didn't use this because it was just too freaking expensive. So they had to come up with some other solutions to get around that, which is not a topic here, but I might as well mention it. So the requirements was TPM, that was the first one. It is short for Trusted Platform Module. It's an actual chip on the motherboard that does the encryption and stores the encryption keys and all that. Nowadays, most motherboards, not all, but most of them come out of this by default. Many moons ago, though, that was not the case. If you wanted to have a TPM on your motherboard, you had to go and special order a motherboard that had this chip. And that would obviously cost you a lot of extra money. We had to do this for every employee that was going to use BitLocker. So it could get very expensive very quickly. That was not the only expensive cost here. We needed a smart card. It's an actual card that an individual would have to have in their possession to symbolize something that they've got on their person. And this smart card alone would be very expensive. You needed one of these for every employee. Now, as if that wasn't expensive enough, we needed a special smart card reader for every employee to read their smart card. That smart card reader would have to be plugged into your PC, and that was going to read the card of the employee. So all of this just keeps adding up and adding up. The cost was enormous. So with regards to the TPM, they said, okay, boys, what can we do that's going to allow our customers to use this great benefit called BitLocker without it costing them an arm and a leg? And somebody came up with the concept of group policy. Not the actual topic here right now, but there is a group policy you can go and turn on that allows you to use BitLocker without a compatible TPM. Now, at no point in the exam do you need to know how to get to any group policy, but you might be required to know what the policy is called. It says allow additional authentication at startup. So if you go into group policies, there's a group policy that says allow additional authentication at startup. That's the policy you need to go and turn on, which will allow you to use BitLocker without a compatible TPM. It doesn't have as many benefits as using a TPM, but it will at least still give you encryption, which is better than having no encryption. As for the smart card and smart card reader problem, they said, okay, well, guys, the smart card represents something the person has physically on their body, on their person. What can we do to make this more affordable, to make this cheaper? Well, at that point in time, people more or less started having flash drives. So somebody said, hey, what if we substitute the smart card with a memory stick, a flash drive? And they did that. So you can still use a smart card if you really want to. It still gives you that option. Or you can use a memory stick as if it's a flash drive. It's basically going to act like a key to your card. So that key, that USB stick, has to be in the PC's USB port for the PC to be able to start. As the PC starts up, it's going to look for this key, the flash drive or the smart card. It's going to find it. Hopefully it finds it. If it finds it, the hard drive will unencrypt itself and you'll be able to log into Windows. If it does not find the smart card or the flash drive, the PC will not unencrypt itself and you will not be able to log into the device. So you see, it was a great way to get around the smart card problem. The last thing I'm going to mention here, folks, regarding BitLocker is the recovery key. So as long as you are the owner to something, whether it be an account, a device, or whatever, there's always a way for you to recover it. Now, BitLocker is no different. Can you imagine for a moment, you've got an external drive, or a flash drive, or a PC that's been encrypted now, and you forget your password, or you lose the flash drive or something. There needs to be a way for you to recover. One such way is to use the recovery key. So when you are setting up BitLocker for the first time on something, it's going to ask you, where do you want to store your recovery key? It used to always just give 3 options. There would normally be to go and save it in your documents, to save it onto a flash drive, or to print the recovery key. There's a 4th one they've added a couple of years back, which allows you to go and store it in the cloud. They've renamed this 4th option so many times over the years. At one point it was called online account, then it was called a Microsoft account, then it was called a live account, then it was called a cloud account. They keep changing the name. The point is, the 4th option is to store the recovery key in the cloud. So now if you, let's say, forget your password one day, or you lose the flash drive or the smart card, and now you can't unencrypt this device or this PC or whatever it is, you can always go and use the recovery key to get access again. But if you lose the recovery key, well, there's nothing you can do about it. Then you might as well throw that hard drive away. Alright folks, so that is the end of the first main section in this module. I'm now moving you into the second and the last main section in this module, which is Troubleshoot Workstation Security Issues. The first topic up here, guys, is Malware Vectors. Basically, the various kinds of malware we get. If you guys are not familiar with malware, it's an umbrella term we use for various harmful things in the IT world. It's not something specific. A lot of people are under the impression that when I say malware, or anybody says malware, it's a virus. Or, no, it's ransomware. Oh, it's a worm. All of those are correct. Malware is an umbrella term. And under this umbrella called malware, you'll find many things. You'll find worms, viruses, Trojan horses, spyware, adware, ransomware, rootkits. All of the stuff I've just mentioned falls under this umbrella called malware. So if I say I've got malware, it could mean anything. We don't know which one I have. I could have a virus. I could have a worm. We don't know. It's pretty vague to say I've got malware. But if I tell you, hey, I've got a virus. Yes, it's a virus, but I can also now say I've got malware, if you get what I'm saying. So I'm going to give you guys a couple of examples that you need to know for the A+ exam of various kinds of malware. You first of all get something called a worm. These are nearly extinct, and for quite a while there I actually thought they were extinct. And then a couple of years ago I randomly saw one again and I couldn't believe my eyes. So the chances of you getting a worm these days is very, very, very unlikely. Even if you've got no security software whatsoever, chances of you getting one, very unlikely. The most common way you would get these would pretty much be the same as normal viruses and ransomware and stuff these days. That would be via email. Yes, you could of course get these via other ways as well, but it would normally be via email. The wrong person clicked on the wrong email, bobbity bop, they triggered the worm. One of the first things these worms would normally do back in the day, maybe not all of them, but most of them, is it would send itself out to everybody you've recently communicated with. So all the mails in your inbox, all the mails in your sent box, all the people you recently communicated with, it's going to send itself to those people pretending to be you and pretending to be from you. Now, if it just randomly sends itself to people, obviously a lot of people are not going to open that mail because we get taught not to open mails that we don't know, that we were not expecting. But if they see a mail coming from you, somebody they know, somebody they probably trust, then they might be more inclined to actually open this mail. And as soon as they open that mail, bobbity bop, they're going to have that infection as well, and the same is going to happen to them. So that's not the only thing that happens though. It doesn't just send itself out. A lot of these worms would display all kinds of ads and stuff in your machine. So you would think, oh, it sounds like adware. Not exactly. These worms would display an insane amount of ads on your PC in an insane amount of time. So in a matter of mere seconds, it'll probably display like 20 or 50 or 100 ads. You cannot see anything on your screen. You cannot do anything on your screen. It basically renders that machine completely useless. So many ads you're going to be seeing. As if that's not bad enough, what we'll also do is these ads are for the most part very inappropriate ads. Things I cannot even mention here on YouTube without getting this video removed by the YouTube popo. It's very inappropriate ads, guys. So it's just one giant awkward soup cocktail is basically what it is. So now every time these people that got infected by you, every time they see you, they're going to associate you that time they got that infection. Meanwhile, you were innocent. Just like their machine tend to want to send us to their friends and colleagues and stuff. So it's just one giant awkward situation is what it created. And then, guys, we get viruses. Viruses, I think most of you guys know what viruses is. They do harmful things on your machine. It's malicious code with malicious intent to delete stuff, break stuff, do harmful things on your machine, that kind of stuff. If I've got code, let's say that's used to shut down my machine after work to save power, that could probably be seen as green code if we have to slap a label onto it of some kind. Not that green code actually exists. But if I were to go and use that exact same code to maliciously shut down people's machines during working hours, that could technically classify as, well, viruses now. Because that code is now being used maliciously. It's all about the intent behind the code. Now, most of the time, you'll find 99% of the time, the code was designed to be malicious straight from the start. So, yeah. Then, folks, we get Trojans, better known as Trojan horses. Why do we call it that? Because a Trojan horse pretends to be one thing when in reality it's doing something else. It pretends to be, for example, a useful toolbar when in reality it is stealing information from you or killing your piece in the background. It pretends to be some cool hacker program, or it pretends to be some cool game. You'll find that whatever it pretends to be, that something will actually work most of the time. Because if it doesn't, what are you gonna do? You're probably gonna go and remove it. So if it pretends to be some cool game, and I install this cool game, and the game doesn't work, what am I gonna do? I'm probably gonna go and uninstall it. They don't want you to go and uninstall it. So whatever it pretends to be, you'll find that 9 out of 10 times will actually work. The whole idea is to get the user, the victim, to keep it on their machine, and as long as you've got this game or whatever this is on your machine, it's gonna silently do something in the background that you're not aware of. It's going to silently steal information from you. You might think that's spyware, but spyware is outright just used to spy on you. Where a Trojan horse is pretending to be something while doing something else. So even though a Trojan horse could be used to spy on you, we don't call it spyware if a Trojan horse spies on you because it's also doing something else. It's pretending to be a game, or it's pretending to be a program or a toolbar or something. So the fact that it's pretending to be something while spying, that makes it a Trojan horse. But if I just install software on your machine and it just outright spies on you, then it's just, well, spyware. So that's the difference here, guys. Trojan horse pretends to be one thing when in reality it's doing something else. Then we get, well, spyware. Just mention that one with Trojan horses. Spyware, I think you know what it is. It's used to spy on the victim. You get many kinds of spyware. You get the kind that just records your keystrokes. Heck, you get subcategories and subcategories. So spyware, one of the subcategories you get is keyloggers. Records your keystrokes, and within the keystrokes category, you get subcategories. You get the kind that records all your keystrokes, and you get the kind that records only when you're about to type in something sensitive. Now, the kind that records all your keystrokes might sound like the more dangerous one, but trust me, as somebody that's used both of these in my life, you don't realize how much people type in a day's time. It's like speaking. We don't realize how many words we speak in a day's time, but if you had to go and write down the amount of words you spoke in a day's time, you will be shocked. The average person, they say, speaks about 6,000 words per day, and that's for a quiet person. I probably speak way more than that because I speak for a living, and that's literally my job, so I probably speak way more than that. But the average person speaks about 6,000 words per day at a minimum. That's an insane amount of words, guys. So if you had to go and record all the keys you typed in a day's time on a keyboard, you'll be surprised to know how much that actually is. Remember, this includes you pressing the space bar. It includes those mistakes you make. It includes you pressing backspace if you made a boo-boo and a delete key. All those keystrokes will get recorded. Now, as a threat actor here, let's say a hacker, as that person to go through all that information with a digital comb in the hopes of potentially finding something that may or may not be sensitive is an excruciating process. This can take days to go through all of that, and I might honestly come out empty-handed about something. Can you imagine spending 2 or 3 days going through all that keystrokes only to come out empty-handed? You're going to be very frustrated. Now, then you also get a spyware keylogger that records only when the user is about to type in something sensitive. When they, for example, are about to log into something like Facebook or whatever, it records only that and sends only that to the threat actor. That one is the more dangerous one, let me tell you that. Other kinds of spyware you get is the kind of, for example, real-time monitors what the person is doing. They can literally see you moving your mouse cursor, they can see what you're looking at, all that real-time, like a video feed basically. Now, with most forms of spyware, the person that is monitoring you would have had to have direct access to the machine at some point in time. Not always, just most of the time. So you'll find that this is maybe on your work PC because the boss wants to spy on you, and obviously the boss at some point in time had access, or the IT team of the boss had access to your machine. This could be on your own machine at home because maybe your spouse thinks you're cheating or whatever. That could also be another reason because you've both got access to the same machine. Get what I'm saying? Anyway, guys, if I move you guys on to another one, which is the last one for malware, ransomware. probably one of the most dangerous kinds you can get when it comes to malware. What ransomware will do is it'll encrypt all your files and documents on your machine. It's not the exact same symptoms people will experience, but there's a couple of things that's worth noting that you will probably see that people have in common. Normally, you'll notice all your files are encrypted. That you'll have in common. Normally, there'll be some sort of prompt on the screen, some sort of display that says, you have been encrypted, or your data has been encrypted. Please pay the following amount in Bitcoin or some sort of cryptocurrency into the following account. So they'll normally ask you to pay a certain amount into a cryptocurrency account because it's untraceable for the most part. And if you don't do that, they will threaten to delete your data. They'll normally give you a timer, somewhere along the lines of 1 day to 3 days. It's normally about 2 days from what I've seen, about 48 hours. It could be as little as 24 hours. So it'll give you a certain amount of time to pay this ransom. If you don't, they will delete your data. If you do pay the ransom, just like a real hostage situation, there's no guarantee that you'll get your data back. You might not. Should you be so lucky to get it back, they will normally send you a tool of sorts that's going to give you the ability to go and decrypt your data on your machine. And even if you are so lucky to manage to get all your data back now, it doesn't mean they won't do it again. They've got you by the short hair now. They've 10 to 1 left some sort of backdoor on your machine. So about 2 months later, 6 months later, they will do it again. And you're going to have to pay the ransom again. So, yeah, it's a bit of a pickle once you get encrypted. Some of these ransomwares will allow you to still browse the machine. Some of them don't. Some of them you're stuck on a desktop and that's it. You've got to pay the ransom. Other ones might allow you to browse the machine, but it's not going to make any difference because you'll find all your files encrypted. You'll just see white icons. The name of all your files will be changed to the account that you've got to pay into. Yeah, weird. Here's a picture for you guys of more or less what you can expect this to look like. It doesn't necessarily look exactly like this one, but that's more or less what you can expect. There's going to be some sort of account you've got to pay into. So you can see here there's a Bitcoin account at the bottom. Other ones I've seen these days, they will actually give you multiple payment options these days. It's getting hilarious. So you don't have to just use Bitcoin these days. They will actually give you other cryptocurrency options you can go and use as well, depending on what you have. There'll be some sort of timer. There'll be some sort of basic instructions on the screen. And that's all you'll be able to see. Anyway, folks, I'm going to move you guys along to the next topic here. Troubleshoot desktop symptoms. Now, this can be a lot of stuff, and this can be on a lot of machines. It can be on a laptop, a desktop, it can be on your machine, it can be on a client's machine. Now, with regards to symptoms, one of the things that comes to mind is a machine that's not performing the way it's supposed to, performance-wise. So maybe it's a bit slow. So on that note, let's talk about performance symptoms. This could be maybe faulty or slow startup, or it could just be the general performance of the machine. So maybe you bought it and it was nice and fast, it performed the way it was supposed to, and as time went by, this machine got slower and slower and slower. Now, this can be a lot of things, guys. It could honestly just be normal. It could be maybe because of all the programs you or this user have installed. That is causing this machine to be slow, because obviously the more you install, the fuller the hard drive becomes. And especially if your main hard drive being drive C, should you have more than one, if your main hard drive is too full, you'll notice the machine starts underperforming. There's various reasons for that, but one of the reasons is because of something called page file memory, also known as virtual memory. It means a small portion of your hard drive gets used as if it is RAM. Obviously not nearly as fast as RAM, but still does get used as if it's RAM. Now if your hard drive is full, that technically means you've got less memory that's going to act as if it's RAM. So that could potentially be a reason why the machine is slow. It can also be because maybe you've got a lot of back-end processes. So obviously the more stuff we install and the more stuff we run, there's going to be services running in the background. And a lot of these tend to start up with the average machine. So in the old days, if you wanted to check what's starting up with the machine, you had to go and type in something called msconfig, Microsoft configuration. And if you went to that console, there would be various tabs. One of the tabs would say startup. Nowadays, if you go there, you'll find it's still there. The tab is still there. It still says startup, but there's nothing found there. So up to about Windows 7, I think, you would find something there. But from Windows 7 onwards, so from Windows 8, 8.1, up to where we are now with Windows 11, you're going to find that tab is blank. Instead, they've left a little note there that says, this has moved to the Task Manager, specifically onto the Startup tab in Task Manager. So if you open up your Task Manager, you can obviously open Task Manager by pressing Ctrl, Alt, and Delete. simultaneously on the keyboard, or you can go and press Control Shift and Escape on the keyboard, or you can right click on a taskbar and just click on Task Manager. Once you get in there, you click on the Startup tab. There you will see what is starting up with this machine. If you see something starting up with the machine that does not need to start up with the machine, this could be something as random as Adobe Reader, which is used to open PDF documents. You really don't need that to start up with the machine. You can of course go and untick that box, and that's going to help this machine start up a little bit faster. If you've got a very old operating system, something older than Windows 10, there's also a chance that this hard drive on this machine might be fragmented. That means it's messy. As time goes by, your hard drive becomes messy. Very much like a desk in front of you. Maybe you had a nice clean desk in front of you which was very organized, and as time goes by, this desk gets more and more messy, so it doesn't mean stuff is missing, but if and when you're going to be looking for something, you're going to find it's going to take you a heck of a lot longer to find it because it's unorganized, it's messy. That's what happens with your hard drive too. So as time goes by, your hard drive becomes messy, becomes unorganized, and it obviously becomes slower and slower as a result of that, which is why we do something called defragmentation. Now, since Windows 10, we don't actually have to do that anymore. This actually happens automatically. So if you're using Windows 10 or Windows 11, not something we need to worry about. So it's 10 to 1 malware, or it could be that the hard drive is full, could be back-end services running on the machine, it could be that the machine is overheating. Obviously, if the machine is overheating, that can also cause the machine to lose some performance. That's why we need to make sure it's got adequate cooling, make sure the vents and the fans are not obstructed, make sure the fans are still running. And lastly, you never know, maybe the machine just needs more RAM. That can also cause the machine to be a bit slow. Other performance symptoms we might potentially experience, guys, is unable to access the network. That's technically going to be something that falls under performance, believe it or not. So there's going to be times you or one of your users or one of your clients or customers cannot access a network. It could be for good, valid, legitimate reasons, or it could be for stupid, silly reasons. It could honestly be that somebody just plugged the cable out somewhere along the line. It could be that somebody has disconnected from the Wi-Fi, the hotspot. Maybe the signal is too weak. Maybe they're out of range. It can be any amount of things. Maybe somebody changed their IP address expired. Could be that there's interference of some kind. All of these are potential valid reasons, and it's normally up to us as technicians to figure out which one it is, what the cause is, and, well, obviously to come up with some sort of mitigation against that. Lastly, folks, with regards to troubleshooting desktop symptoms, we are sometimes going to experience what we call file system errors or anomalies. Sometimes, once again, this could just be for random legitimate reasons. Other times it's, well, malware. So if you see something weird, something funky, and you know for a fact it's not supposed to be like that, especially if you've got a lot of experience in IT, there's a fairly good chance that it might be a result of, well, malware. So if you start seeing files names change, files moving, the icons of files changing, system randomly crashing on you for no apparent reason, yeah, that is very strange, and it's normally red flags. That's normally an indication that this machine might potentially be infected with malware. So one of the first things we do when we start seeing weird funky symptoms like that is to quarantine that system, because we don't want this spreading any further. You quarantine that system, unplug it from the network if it's a network cable. If it's on a Wi-Fi network, you disconnect from the Wi-Fi. You also go and tell that machine to forget the Wi-Fi, otherwise it's just going to go and reconnect automatically. And then you start troubleshooting. You start running your antivirus scans, start checking what could potentially be causing this, go check in Event Viewer, check any form and all forms of logs you might potentially encounter. So, yeah, if you start seeing weird errors or anomalies, could just be an error, you never know, but it could also be malware. So rather be paranoid than be safe than not be paranoid and actually end up having malware. That's not what we want. Anyway, folks, since we are talking about malware here, or anomalies, let's talk about best practices for malware. I've kind of given you guys some of the steps here already, kind of, sort of. So when it comes to, well, removing malware, or when you suspect malware, or when you've just discovered malware, there's a couple of best practices that we need to go and execute. So you probably don't have to go and do my list exactly, but the list I'm about to give you is the official list from CompTIA, and this is what they will test you on in the exam. So remember the order. So step 1, investigate and verify the malware symptoms. So this is not your machine. If this is somebody else's machine, maybe just make sure there actually is malware, because sometimes people exaggerate. They think, oh, I've got malware. Meanwhile, the machine is just acting up weird, So maybe just go to investigate and verify that this actually is malware. If you suspect that this might legitimately be malware, quarantine the infected system or systems. And I've explained just a couple of moments ago how you go about that. Obviously, if it's plugged into a cable, you unplug it. If it's connected to a Wi-Fi, you disconnect from the Wi-Fi. You also tell the machine to forget the Wi-Fi network. Otherwise, it's going to go and reconnect automatically. What I also want to add on to this is if you're going to go and disconnect the machine from the network, maybe also physically remove the machine from where it is. I've had cases in the past where maybe you will just go and unplug a machine because you suspect it's now infected. And if you come back later that day, or the next day or whatever, you'll find that this machine is actually plugged back in. Because people don't know why you unplugged it. They just see, okay, well, this machine's unplugged. Let's plug it back in. Meanwhile, there's a reason why it was unplugged. So to prevent somebody from maliciously or accidentally plugging the machine back into the network and causing further harm, I suggest you physically remove the machine to prevent people from doing that boo-boo. So physically remove it from that environment. Eliminate that possibility. Then, folks, disable system restore in Windows. That's what CompTIA says, but I want to add on to what CompTIA says. Also disable any and all forms of backup. System restore is not a backup. It's kind of, it is, but it's not. Only backs up the system. It doesn't back up your data. But also, with regards to your backups, also disable those. Why? Because obviously it's important to have backups, so why are we disabling them? It's to prevent them from getting compromised, guys. So obviously when you just detected the malware, there's a very good chance it has not gotten into your backups yet. Your system restore checkpoints, your actual backups has not gotten in there yet. At least we hope so. But if you're going to leave it long enough, eventually system restore is going to make another backup checkpoint. And eventually your machine or this environment is going to back up again. Normally that's what happens. And that means if there's any malware, there's a chance it might get backed up. And there's a chance it's going to get into your backups, compromise your backups, and then you're not going to be able to use them all, or you're not going to be able to use some of them. So that's a problem. So to prevent our backups from getting compromised or any further compromised, we disable them. And then eventually when you manage to get all of this sorted out, then you obviously go and turn it back on again, and your system restore, your backups and all that. So once you've disabled system restore and your backups, remediate the infected systems. In other words, go and take care of it. Go run your scans, go and manually remove it, do what you need to go and do. So yeah, run your scans, do your updates. Sometimes if you do updates, that'll also take care of the problem. You never know. And once you've done your scans, and you've taken care of business, and you've removed the malware, then of course, you go and enable system restore. You go and enable your backups again. And then just as a precautionary measure, maybe go and make a restore point. You never know. Maybe you'll need it. And then one of the last steps I'm going to give you guys, which could easily be one of the most important steps here, is educate the user. At the end of the day, guys, you can have the world's best security. You can have the latest of the latest. But if you don't train your users, they're still going to go and do something silly. They're still going to go and click on a link they're not supposed to. They're still going to go and launch something they're not supposed to. Go to websites they're not supposed to. Or just in general, do stuff they're not supposed to. So the weakest link is almost always the user. So it's very important to educate them and tell them, don't do this, don't do that. Because this is going to happen or that's going to happen. Now, unfortunately, we are still going to get those users that are still going to go and do it because some of them just like to ignore us. They think they're smarter than us. You just get those that just don't care. And let's not forget, you get those that are just plain, well, stupid. Anyway, guys, let me take you guys here to the last topic in this section and in this module. And then at the end of this video, I want to mention something extra and something new to you guys. So just in case you guys don't know, I do have a Reddit now too. So never mind the Discord server, which you'll find the link for in the video description. There is a Reddit. It's called CompTIA _plus. So if you guys go to Reddit, go check it out. It's called CompTIA _plus. If you've written the exam, whether you passed or failed, feel free to put your exam scores there. If you've got questions about any of the CompTIA courses, they're, exam related, how does things work or whatever, feel free to post it there, and I'm sure somebody will be able to assist you, including myself. You never know. Anyway, folks, the last topic for today, infected systems quarantine. I think we've got a fair understanding of what needs to happen here. So once you have established a machine is, infected, we need to quarantine said machine for, obvious reasons. So with that in mind, we quarantine infected systems. We prevent the use of privileged accounts. That's just in general, so never mind doing that on a machine that's been quarantined. So obviously if we know a machine is suspected to have malware, we definitely do not want to use any privileged account because we don't know what kind of malware we're dealing with. Maybe it's spyware. And as soon as you go and use any form of privileged account, some perpetrator, some threat actor somewhere along the line is going to get those details, and they could potentially go and use this for, well, malicious things. You never know. But in general too, folks, we don't use high privileged accounts unless we absolutely need to, which is why we've got that golden rule in IT, which is using least privilege. So for all users, including ourselves, we give least privilege. We never go and use an account that's got more privilege than what we need to achieve a task or a goal. That is not just because we don't trust people, although that's one of the main reasons. It's also in the event of an account potentially getting compromised. Then at least we know that threat actor cannot see too much and they cannot do too much. They'll probably still be able to do some level of damage, and they'll probably still see stuff they're not supposed to, but we can limit what they can see and do. Something else you guys need to go and do with an infected system, something I did mention earlier, is isolate it from the production network. So never mind unplugging it, disconnecting from the network, via Wi-Fi. Physically remove that sucker. Put it in a server room. Put it someplace where people can't get a hold of it besides yourself. And then, something we often forget, guys, is isolate and scan any removable media. It's unlikely this machine had removable media plugged into it, but you never know. Maybe there was something like a flash drive plugged into it. Maybe there was an external drive plugged into it when we detected this malware. And people often forget that flash drive or memory stick or external drive that was plugged in, that might potentially be infected now. So it doesn't help you very much to go and quarantine the machine, scan the machine, fix the machine, but nobody goes and checks on these removable medias. Afterwards, you just go and plug those back in and boobity bop, you're back where you were. So scan the removable media if anything was plugged into that machine when the malware was detected. You never know. And then something we did mention earlier, disable system restore. So turn off backup services that might preserve the malware. You don't want to have a situation where the malware gets backed up into your system restore or it gets backed up into normal backups, and then later down the line you go and restore, or when you try to restore, you're actually restoring the malware. That's the last thing we want, folks. Anyway, guys, that is it for today's module. So thank you very much for watching this video. I hope you've learned something from today's video. If you have, show me that by giving this video a like. I really would appreciate that. If you'd like to know when module 20 goes live, like usual, maybe consider subscribing, guys. Thank you very much to the supporters of this channel. So if you've clicked on the thanks button below the video, assuming it's in your country, thank you very much. If you'd like to make some sort of donation or support the channel, guys, you can find that information below the video in the video description. You can buy me a coffee or a milkshake. You can, I don't know, make a PayPal donation if you want to, or just click on thanks below the video. Alternatively, maybe consider becoming a Patreon. You can become a free one. Doesn't cost you a cent. You can become one where you pay $3 a month and then you just support the channel. Or you can go and opt for one of the higher tiers and then you obviously get additional study material and all that. So it's all up to you in the end of the day. If you do decide to become a Patreon, you can have your name displayed here if you're a paid one. That's totally optional. I would normally ask you first. So if you want, let me know. We can have your name displayed here, guys. And then lastly, I'm sure you guys know, the channel does have a Discord server. It's called Free IT Training. The link is in the video description down below. It's literally way at the bottom of the video description. And there's also a Reddit for the channel. So it's called CompTIA_plus. There you can go and have various discussions that are related to CompTIA, about the courses, about the exams. As long as we stick to CompTIA's rules and all those kinds of things, we should be okay. But yeah, feel free to go and check that out too, guys. Alright, I will see you in module 20 of the CompTIA A+ course.